The Philadelphia suburbs are incredibly popular for those that are moving from out of state to Pennsylvania, but also those that want to actually leave the city of Philadelphia. So if you're considering making the move out of Philly and into one of the 4 counties that make up the Philly suburbs, this is your full guide to help you decide if the move is truly worth it, what the cost of living difference is, and at the end, some extra things that you need to know before making the move to the suburbs. I'm Cory Benhardt, your Philly suburb realtor. I would love to help you find your perfect home. All of my contact information is below. Let's get started with the first major difference between Philadelphia and the suburbs, which is the taxes. Pennsylvania is one of the few states out of the entire country that is a flat rate income tax state, which means that no matter how much you make, every resident in Pennsylvania is taxed at the same 3.07% rate. And that doesn't fluctuate by income like most other states do. That rate is standard all across Pennsylvania, except for Philadelphia, which has an additional wage tax of 3.75% for Philadelphia residents and 3.44% for those who work in the city but live outside of the city border. This wage tax has never really made sense because the city is essentially rewarding those that don't live in the actual city. If you're a Philly resident, it's likely that you're paying 6.82% in total income tax between the city and the state, which will reduce by more than half of that down to 3.07% when you move to the suburbs. You're also going to save a total of 2% in sales tax when you leave Philadelphia because Philadelphia adds an additional 2% on top of the statewide sales tax of 6%. When it comes to the property taxes, it really all depends on the specific area that you plan to buy your home. Philly's average property tax rate is around 0.99, while in the suburbs, the average is around 1.5%. But keep in mind, the property tax is extremely hyper-local, so it really all depends on where you end up buying your new home. So while Philly does have the lower average property tax rate, keep in mind that if you're owning a home in Philly, it's very likely that you don't have a backyard, a driveway, a garage, or anything like that if you own your home in the city. So that extra property tax in the suburbs could definitely be worth the additional space and privacy that you'll likely have in your suburb home. One of the biggest factors that my clients mention when moving to the suburbs from the city is the comparison of the Philadelphia public school district to the public school districts in the suburbs. According to niche.com, when we look at the top school districts in all of Pennsylvania, out of a total of 500 districts, 50% of the top 10 and 60% of the top 25 districts on that list are located in the Philly suburbs. If school district is a really important factor for you and your family on where you end up moving to, that's definitely something that we can dive deeper into as we get the search started, because I found that people that are moving more so out of the state into Pennsylvania might not know that the school that your child ends up going to all depends on where you end up buying your house. I've heard that in other states, there's an option that if you move into a home that technically goes to one specific school district, you can request or pay to go to a different public school district, and that's just not how it works here. One of the main factors between the city and the suburbs is the housing. Philadelphia real estate is mainly comprised of high-rise condo buildings with tons of different amenities, along with older historic row homes, townhomes, and plenty of new construction options as well. The only real option for outdoor space when you own a home in Philly is a very small backyard or a rooftop deck. And now for the suburbs, which have tons of different housing options. If you want to leave the city for more space or privacy or whatever it may be, but you don't want to give up the close proximity to shopping and dining, we can certainly find you tons of different towns that would match the both suburban living, but you can also have the close proximity to so many things, and even some of the walkable towns as well. The towns and counties within this area are mostly made up of single family and townhome neighborhoods at every price point. And if you would prefer a home with plenty of land, there are plenty of towns within the suburbs that offer homes with multiple acres. Speaking of housing, now for one of the most important comparisons, the housing cost differences between the city and the suburbs. Philadelphia and Pennsylvania as a whole are known to be some of the more affordable housing options on the East Coast, but when we compare them to each other, there is a significant difference. The one thing that you have to keep in mind before we dive into the numbers is that real estate is very hyper-local, so every town has its own price point. The average home sale price in Philadelphia as of the time of making this video is $216,914, which is one of the lowest average housing costs across the entire country for a major city. Of course, every neighborhood neighborhood in the city has its own average home price, along with every individual town throughout the suburbs. So if I have the opportunity to help you find your perfect home, we can dive into exactly what you're looking for to make sure that we're searching in an area that not only matches what you're looking for, but also your price point as well. Now for the suburbs, the 4 counties that make up the Philadelphia suburb area are Bucks County with an average home sale price of $481,000, Montgomery County with an average sales price of $457,000, Delaware County at $340,000, and Chester County with an average home sale price of $534,000, with plenty of homes available in the suburbs, both above and below these averages. Another key difference to keep in mind is the transportation between the city and the suburbs. When living in the city, it's very common to not have a car or not rely on your car, but instead rely on the very convenient public transportation. The entire Philadelphia metro area is serviced by SEPTA, which is the company responsible for all public transportation throughout the city and suburbs. SEPTA offers train and bus access not just in the city, but also going out about an hour outside of the city into the suburbs as well. It's also very common and convenient to take a train or bus to New York City or New Jersey as well. Most of my clients that have moved here are truly shocked to see just how convenient the public transportation options are within the suburbs, because mostly when you hear suburbs, you don't really think of convenient public transportation. Of course, it's nothing like how convenient it is in the city, but for the most part, most of the major suburban towns have some sort of train or bus access, not just to other towns within the suburbs, but also going into the city as well. Another factor about transportation to keep in mind when thinking about the suburbs is that you'll have less reliance on public transportation, which means more costs for car maintenance, insurance, gas costs, etc. All right, so one of the major everyday costs that could change are the groceries. Groceries in the city can be slightly cheaper due to more competition and accessibility, but on the bright side, in the suburbs, you have much more access to tons of different grocery store options. Another major difference to factor in is actually the utilities. In the city, PECO is the company that supplies the electricity, and Philadelphia Gas Works supplies the natural gas. But in the suburbs, PECO supplies the electricity and the natural gas. In the city, it's known that gas is much more expensive with much higher rates from PGW as it is with PECO out in the suburbs. But for electricity, it will likely be higher in the suburbs since homes are typically larger. One of the major advantages of utilities in the suburbs is that there are typically tons of different options, meaning if you would prefer a home that has natural gas, that's definitely something we can find. But there is also a great mix of homes with electric heat, oil heat, propane, etc. The suburbs are also very unique because not all homes have public utilities. Some also have private utilities, meaning private water and private sewer. If you're moving from out of Pennsylvania, or if you're a lifelong resident within the city, you might not know what exactly private water and private sewer mean. Private water could be in the form of a well tank, which essentially is a huge tank underground that filters groundwater and provides it as a primary source of water for your home. There is also private sewer, which is essentially the same thing with a large tank underground, but it works the reverse way. One option isn't better than the other. It really is just personal preference. I find that more people would prefer public water and public sewer, so you don't have to worry about having tanks pumped or maintenance or anything like that. But there truly is really not one better option. And that's something that we can go over together as well. All right, so some of the extra things that you might not have considered when thinking about making the move to the suburbs, let's go over that right now. Let's start with the possibility of living in an HOA neighborhood. I know that some people think of HOA, they think of incredibly tough association boards and not being able to do anything to your house. For the most part, most associations are not like that, especially around here. It's more so in the crazy states where just about every home is in an HOA and they have full control over everything. It's really not that way here. So whether you're open to an HOA or not, it's definitely something to keep in mind, as it's not really a thing in the city. Another thing you probably might not have considered is the size of your backyard. If you're moving from the city, it's very likely that you're excited to have space and yard and maybe not have a home that's connected to your neighbors. But the one thing to keep in mind is having a huge yard sounds amazing until you realize truly how much work and how much time it takes, from mowing the grass, raking the leaves, mulching, and in the winter, of course, having a long driveway is great, but it comes to shoveling that as well. Most suburban homes have a good amount of space in the backyard, but if you're looking for a home with tons of land, keep these little things in mind that you might not have considered. If you're planning to make the move to the suburbs, I would love to help you find your perfect home. All of my contact information is below, or I have a contact link in the description below, and I look forward to hearing from you. And until then, I will see you over on this next video.